The strange lights in the sky the night was quiet, the kind of quiet that only came to the edge of the colony. Ethan sat on the old wooden steps of his cabin, staring at the sky. The stars looked cold and far away, like tiny holes in a black blanket. His hands were rough and stained with oil from a day of fixing broken farm machines. Inside, his daughter, Lila, was doing her homework by the weak yellow light of a solar lamp. She was 12, smart, and already dreaming of leaving this dusty place. Ethan didn't blame her. Life on the colony's edge was hard. It had been even harder since her mother had gone. He was just thinking about going inside when it happened. Stars shifted, or at least that's what it looked like at first. A streak of bright blue light cut across the sky, fast, silent, and far too smooth to be a meteor. Then another streak followed, and another, weaving through the air like they were chasing each other. Ethan frowned. Ships didn't fly this close to the colony, not at night. Not unless something was wrong. Then one of the lights slowed down. It wobbled, flickered, and suddenly dropped lower, leaving a trail of fire behind it. The blue glow faded to a dull red as it dove toward the hills west of the cabin. There was no explosion, only a deep thud that rolled through the ground like distant thunder. "Dad?" Lila's voice was small from the doorway. He looked at her and tried to smile, but his mind was already racing. "Stay inside," he said, grabbing his old metal toolbox from the porch. "You're not going out there, are you?" she asked, her eyes wide. He gave her the kind of look that meant the answer was yes. "Something crashed," he told her. "Could be a ship. Could be something else. I just want to check." "Ships crash for a reason," she whispered. "Maybe that reason is still out there." Ethan hesitated. She wasn't wrong. The colony had its share of dangers, smugglers, wild predators, strange machines from the old wars that sometimes woke up and wandered. But there was also the chance of salvage. And salvage meant credits. "I'll be back before midnight," he promised. "Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but me." She didn't answer, just nodded and stepped back inside. The night air was cold as he started toward the hills, his boots crunching on dry dirt. The smell of smoke was faint, but there, mixed with something sharp, almost metallic as he got closer. He saw a faint blue glow rising from behind a ridge. It pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. When he climbed the last hill, the sight stopped him in his tracks. It was a ship, but unlike any he had ever seen. Its surface was smooth, almost like glass, and shimmered even in the darkness. The hull was cracked open in places, leaking pale steam. Small sparks danced across its surface like fireflies. And there, lying on the ground beside it, was a figure. Ethan's first thought was that it was a woman. She wore armor, silver, and tight too. The body, with strange lines that glowed faintly. Her helmet was gone, revealing dark hair that stuck to her pale skin. She was breathing fast, shallow. He crouched beside her. "Hey, can you hear me?" Her eyes opened, sharp, bright, and not quite human. She grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. "They will come," she whispered, her voice shaking. "You must hide." Before he could ask anything, her grip loosened and she collapsed again. Ethan's pulse hammered in his ears. "They will come." Who was they? He looked around. The hills were silent, the only sound the hiss of steam from the ship. Still, something in his gut told him not to linger. He slid his arms under the woman and lifted her. She was lighter than he expected, her armor cold against his skin. The trip back to the cabin felt longer than the trip out. Every rustle of leaves, every distant creak of the hills made him glance over his shoulder. When he reached the cabin, Lila stood at the door, her eyes wide. "Who is that?" she asked. "Found her near the crash," he said, stepping inside. "She's hurt. Help me clear the table." They laid the woman down, and Ethan began checking for wounds. There were cuts along her arms and a burn across her side. The armor was fused to some of the injuries. Removing it would do more harm than good. Lila brought water, and together they cleaned the wounds as best they could. The woman didn't wake, but she muttered in a strange language that made the hair on Ethan's arms stand up. When they were done, Ethan pulled a blanket over her. He sat down, rubbing his tired eyes. "Dad," Lila whispered, "what if someone comes looking for her?" Ethan thought about the strange lights, the words she'd spoken, the way her ship looked like nothing built on this world. "They probably will," he said quietly. "And I don't think they'll be friendly." Outside, somewhere far away in the dark hills, a low hum began to rise. It was faint, but growing, the sound of something moving. Something searching. Ethan stood and reached for the rifle on. The wall, whatever was coming, was already on its way. Asterisk fixing what shouldn't exist. The hum in the hills never stopped that night. It rose and fell like breathing, moving closer, then drifting away again. Ethan didn't sleep. He sat in the chair by the door, rifle across his knees, eyes fixed on the shadows outside. By morning, the sound was gone, but the feeling in his chest wasn't. Something was still out there, watching. The woman, the stranger, was still on the table, breathing slow. Her skin had a faint shimmer now, like dust catching sunlight. Leela stood beside her, staring. "She's not from here," Leela whispered. "Not from our colony, not even from our planet." Ethan didn't answer. He didn't want to admit that. He thought the same thing. He needed answers. And the only place to get them was her ship. The wreck still sat in the hills, quiet now, the blue glow dimmer, but still alive. Ethan climbed inside, careful not to touch anything sharp or burning. The inside was stranger than the outside. No chairs. No controls he recognized. The walls were smooth and curved, covered in soft light panels. Symbols floated in the air like ghosts, shifting shapes that hurt his eyes if he stared too long. He brushed his fingers along the nearest panel. It was warm. The symbols changed, and a sudden sharp tone rang through the ship. Ethan froze. Soft voice spoke in a language he didn't know. Then the lights blinked red, one by one. He knew the language of machines well enough to understand that the ship was dying. He opened his toolbox and started working, though working felt like guesswork. The wiring was thinner than human hair, the metal stronger than anything forged on Earth. Every piece he touched seemed to react, either with heat or with a pulse under his fingertips. The strangest thing, some of the symbols felt familiar. Shapes like the ones in his grandmother's old prayer book, a language she swore came from the first travelers. He worked for hours, losing track of time. He managed to bring one panel back to blue, and when it did, the whole ship seemed to take a breath. The hum inside deepened, steadier now. That's when he felt it, a vibration through the floor. Not from the ship. From outside, Ethan grabbed his rifle and stepped out of the wreck. The hills were empty, but the dirt bore fresh marks. Not footprints exactly, more like melted circles, burned into the ground in a perfect trail toward the cabin. His chest tightened. He ran. Back at the cabin, the woman was awake. She stood in the doorway, holding his rifle like she'd been born with it. Lila was behind her, eyes wide but calm. The woman's gaze locked on him. "You touched my ship." Ethan didn't know if it was a question or an accusation. "I fixed part of it. It was dying." She tilted her head, studying him. "You do not know my tech. You should not be able to." Ethan shrugged. "Guess I'm a fast learner." Something almost like a smile flickered across her face, and was gone. "The ones who follow me will be here soon. The ship must fly, or we die." She walked past him, moving toward the hills. Come, you will help. They worked side by side inside the wreck. She moved fast, speaking in short, sharp commands, and Ethan found himself understanding her more by tone than by words. She used tools he'd never seen before, thin rods of light that cut metal without heat, gloves that let her pull circuits barehanded. But the longer they worked, the more Ethan noticed her eyes flicking to the horizon, as if expecting an attack at any moment. Finally, he asked, "Who's coming for you?" Her hands stilled over the console. "Hunters," she said. "They take what they want. They want me and the core." "What's the core?" She looked at him for a long time before answering. "The reason your world still spins." Before. He could press her. The ship's panels lit up blue all at once. A deep thrum filled the air, the sound of power returning dot, and then, from far away, but growing fast, came another sound. A howl, high-pitched, metallic, and filled with hunger. Woman's jaw tightened. "Too late," she said. Dot outside, across the hills, shadows were moving. Tall, thin, and glowing faintly. The hunters had found them. The woman wakes, the shadows moved fast. Too fast. Ethan's first thought was that they weren't human. His second thought was that they weren't alive. At least, not in any way that made sense. They glided over the ground without bending grass or kicking dust, their limbs too long, their heads too thin. Each one carried a spear of white light, humming like a swarm of angry insects. Kaela didn't hesitate. She tossed Ethan a strange-looking rod no heavier than a wrench and said, "If it glows, point it at their heads. If it stops glowing, run." "Where?" Ethan asked. Her eyes locked on him. "Anywhere I'm not dead." The first hunter broke from the group, rushing up the hill with terrifying speed. Kaela met it halfway, slamming her blade into its chest. Sparks sprayed, and the thing's body dissolved into black dust that vanished on the wind. But two more took its place instantly. Ethan felt the rod in his hand vibrate. A pale blue light loomed at its tip. The nearest hunter turned toward him. Its face, if it was a face, split open in 3 jagged lines, showing nothing but darkness inside. Ethan didn't think. He pointed the rod and squeezed the trigger. A silent burst of light hit the creature, and it froze, shaking violently before collapsing into that same black dust. "Keep moving," Kaela shouted. They fought back to back, Ethan's pulse slamming against his ribs. He'd fixed machines his whole life, but this was the first time he'd broken something that wasn't built by human hands. And each time a hunter fell, he swore. The others moved faster, angrier. Then the air changed. It felt heavier, pressing down on him. He turned and froze. At the edge of the hills stood something bigger. Much bigger. The leader. Its body shimmered like it was half here and half somewhere else. 4 arms, each holding a different weapon. Its head was a smooth, mirror-like dome reflecting the ship, the hills, and Ethan himself. It didn't attack. It just stood there, watching. Kaela noticed it too. She stepped in front of Ethan, her voice low. "That one wants the core." "You keep saying that," Ethan said, still catching his breath. "What is it?" Her jaw clenched. "It's the heart of my ship, the heart of my people. Without it, stars die, stars die." Ethan repeated, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. Her eyes were dead serious. "And your son is one of them." Before he could answer, the leader raised one of its arms and pointed at him. The hunter stopped instantly, like a switch had been thrown. Ethan's stomach turned. It wasn't Kaela they wanted this time. It was him. "Why me?" he asked under his breath. Kaela glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "Because you fixed my ship. No human should be able to do that. Not without a piece of us inside them." He didn't understand. He didn't want to understand. But the leader took a step forward, and something deep in Ethan's chest began to hum, matching the sound of the hunter's weapons. Kaela suddenly grabbed his arm. "Get inside the ship. Now. What about you? I'll hold them off." "You won't last." She cut him off with a look so sharp it almost hurt. "I wasn't asking." Ethan ran. The ship's hatch sealed behind him, just as a flash of white light lit the entire hill. The panels around him flared to life, symbols racing across the walls like they were in panic. Then he heard it, not with his ears, but inside his head. A voice, Pilot Link detected. "Welcome, Ethan." Outside, Kaela's silhouette moved against a wall of light and dust. Hunters fell, but more replaced them. The leader still stood at the ridge, unmoving, as if it had all the time in the universe. Inside the ship, Ethan's hands moved without thinking, pressing panels he didn't understand, flipping switches. That felt familiar. The hum in his chest grew stronger. The ship responded. Somewhere in the chaos, Kaela shouted his name. Not in anger, not in warning, but in fear. And that's when Ethan realized she wasn't afraid of the hunters anymore. She was afraid of what he was about to do. Asterisk night visitors. The ship's walls pulsed in time with Ethan's heartbeat. Blue light slid across the curved panels, like rivers finding their way home. Symbols swirled and twisted, breaking apart and reforming into English. Pilot Link, confirmed. Ethan's hands hovered over the controls. "I'm not your pilot," he muttered. "Correction," the voice replied inside his head. "You are now." Outside, the hillside shook. Through the ship's transparent canopy, he saw Kaela spinning through the hunters like a storm given shape. Her silver armor cracked, one arm bleeding, but she refused to fall. The leader stood untouched at the ridge, its mirrored head catching. The moonlight, reflecting Kaela, the hunters, and the ship, but not Ethan. It was like he didn't exist. The hunters suddenly shifted. They stopped attacking Kaela. They turned, all of them, toward the ship. A cold wave rolled over Ethan's skin. "They're coming for me." The leader raised its largest weapon, a staff crackling with lightning that arced into the sky, and pointed it at the ground. The earth split, and from the crack came a crawling shadow, like oil given life, moving faster than a man could run. The ship's voice spoke again. "Warning. Containment breach possible. Initiate defensive sequence?" Ethan hesitated. "What happens if I say yes?" "They won't reach you, but someone else might." Before he could decide, the ship moved without his command. Panels unfolded from its sides, releasing small, hovering drones that spun into position like metal hawks. Each one lit with the same blue glow in Ethan's chest. Outside, Kaela looked up at the sudden light. Her expression changed, and not in relief. It was horror. "Ethan, don't let it take control," she shouted. The ship didn't wait for permission. Blue lances of energy fired into the night, cutting through hunters in bursts of light and ash. The leader's mirrored head tilted, and for the first time, Ethan thought it looked curious. Kaela dashed to the ship's hatch and slammed her hand against it. It opened instantly, too instantly. She stumbled inside, her breath sharp. "You linked with it, didn't you? You let it inside your mind?" "I didn't, it just happened." She grabbed his collar. "Listen to me. That ship is older than my people. It chooses its pilots for one reason, because it thinks you're not human enough to break it." Ethan stared at her. "Not human enough?" Kaela's eyes flicked to the glowing panels. "We can argue later. Right now, we have to kill the leader before it calls reinforcements." Outside, the remaining hunters formed a wall around the leader. The thing didn't move, didn't blink. Instead, its mirrored head turned until Ethan saw his own reflection, smiling back at him. He wasn't smiling. The voice in his head returned. He is like you. That is why he wants you. Ethan gripped the controls, but they shifted under his hands, reshaping into grips that fit his fingers perfectly, as if they'd been made for him long before tonight. Kaela braced herself. Whatever you're going to do it now. Ethan thought about aiming for the leader's chest. Instead, he aimed for its reflection. The first shot tore across the ridge, missing the leader by inches, but the reflection in the mirrored dome flinched like it had been hit. The leader hissed, a sound that wasn't metal or animal, but something deep, almost old. It stepped forward, lifting its lightning staff again, but this time the lightning didn't strike the ground. It struck the sky. Clouds twisted. A deep red glow bled across the stars, and Ethan's gut told him this wasn't just weather. Something was coming down. Fast. Kaela's voice was tight. That's not reinforcements. That's a collector. If it lands, it will strip this planet clean. The ship's voice overlapped hers. Collector arrival in 248 seconds. Escape advised. Ethan's hands hovered. Escape where? Anywhere. But here. Or finish the hunt. Kaela's hand closed over his. We finish it, or there will be nowhere left to run. Ethan looked from her to the leader. For a moment, he thought he saw something in its mirrored face. Not malice, not rage, but recognition. Like it already knew the ending. And somehow, so did he. The hum in his chest deepened, turning into a slow, steady thump-thump like the heartbeat of something much larger than him. The ship's weapons charged again. The hunters tensed. The sky turned blood red. And in that frozen moment, before the storm hit, Ethan realized this wasn't just Kaela's fight anymore. It was his. Asterisk the repair and the debt. The sky was no longer black. It was bleeding. The red light from the approaching collector bathed the hills, turning every shadow into something sharp and cruel. The ship's voice kept counting down in Ethan's head. Collector arrival in 190 seconds, 189, 188. Kaela yanked open a side panel in the ship's wall, revealing a glowing sphere locked inside a web of silver roots. It pulsed like a heartbeat, but each pulse was slower than the last. That's the core, she said, her voice tight. Without it, my ship dies. Without the ship. Her eyes flicked upward to the red clouds. So does your planet. Ethan stared at it. Then take it out and let's go. It's damaged. Her hands were already moving, pulling tools from a belt that wasn't there a moment ago. The fight with the hunters fractured the casing. If it fails during flight, it will detonate. Ethan's stomach turned. Detonate like a bomb? No, she said without looking at him. Detonate like a dying star. The core's glow dimmed again. The ship's voice spoke in his mind. Core instability at 42%, 39%, 36%. Ethan dropped to his knees beside her. What do you need? Her eyes flicked to him, almost surprised. You can't. You've seen me. Fix things I shouldn't even understand, he snapped. Tell me what to do. For a moment she hesitated. Then she handed him a thin blade of light and pointed to the tangled roots around the core. Cut only the ones that hum, not the ones that sing. Ethan frowned. That's not an instruction. That's poetry. Poetry will keep you alive, she said. Asterisk, they worked fast. Every cut made the core shiver. Every wrong move risked killing them both. Outside, the hunters circled the ship but didn't attack, waiting for their leader's signal. The leader still stood on the ridge, its mirrored face turned toward the sky as if it could feel the collector coming. The countdown hit, 120 seconds. Ethan's hands moved without thought now. The roots seemed to guide him, shifting under his fingers like they wanted him to know where to cut. Asterisk. When he glanced at Kaela, Her eyes were wide, not with fear, but with something closer to recognition. "You've done this before," she said quietly. "I've never even seen this thing before tonight." "Not with your eyes," she murmured. "But your blood remembers." The core suddenly flared bright blue, nearly blinding him. The ship's voice pulsed in his mind. Stabilization possible. Final seal requires pilot. Ethan didn't need to ask who that meant. He pressed both hands to the sphere. It was ice cold, and then in the next heartbeat, burning hot. Images slammed into his mind. Stars being born, stars collapsing. Ships, like Kaelas drifting between galaxies. A war fought in silence across the dark, and in all of it, faces that looked almost human, but not quite. One of them was his. When the vision faded, the core's glow steadied. The countdown froze at 78 seconds. Kaela let out a breath she'd been holding. "You did it." Ethan pulled his hands back. "I don't know what I did." "You paid my debt," she said simply. "My life is yours now." He blinked at her. "That's not how I work. It's how my people work." Her eyes locked on his. "And my people never break a bond." Outside, the leader finally moved. The hunters broke formation, rushing the ship in a silent wave. The ship's voice surged in his head. Weapons online. Core stable. Collector arrival in 72 seconds. Kaela's mouth curved in a thin, dangerous smile. "Good. Let's make them regret coming here." The ship's sides split open, revealing cannons that hummed with the same blue light as the core. Ethan gripped the controls. They felt even more alive now, like they were breathing with him. Kaela slid into the co-pilot's seat, her armor glinting in the blood-red light. "Aim for the leader. The rest will fall when he does." Ethan looked out at the mirrored dome. On the ridge. For the first time, he saw his reflection in it again. But now, the smile wasn't just on the reflection's face. Dotted was on his 2-dot asterisk, the final fight. The hills erupted in light. The first shot from the ship's cannons tore through the night like lightning, shattering 3 hunters before they even took a step. Their bodies dissolved into black dust that swirled upward, carried away by the red wind from the collectors. Approach. The leader didn't flinch. It raised its lightning staff, and the hunters surged forward in a perfect wave. Silent, unstoppable, inhuman. Kaela's voice was sharp. "Left flank, now." Ethan didn't think. The ship seemed to move with him, swinging wide, cannons rotating like they could see through the darkness. Each blast cut the hunters down, but for every one that fell, 2 more rose from the shadows. The countdown in his head was merciless. Collector arrival in 56 seconds. 55, 54. Then the ground split open. From the crack burst massive, insect-like machines, each the size of a house, crawling on 6 legs of jagged metal. Their heads were smooth black domes, reflecting the red sky and Ethan's face. Kaela cursed under her breath. Collectors, harvesters. "They'll rip the core out of the ship." "Not if we rip them apart first," Ethan said. They dove low over the hillside, the ship's belly guns shredding one harvester in a spray of molten shards. Another leapt high, claws raking across the ship's side. The metal screamed, sparks filling the cockpit. Shields at 72%. The ship's voice warmed. Ethan's hands gripped the controls tighter. The core's thrum in his chest matched the rhythm of the weapons firing. It wasn't just guiding him now. It was pushing him, feeding him instinct that wasn't human. He knew where the hunters would move before they moved. He saw the harvesters. Weak points without thinking, and it scared the hell out of him. Kaela noticed. "You're sinking with the core," she said. "That's impossible for—" She stopped herself, but he caught it. "For what? For a human?" Her eyes stayed on the battlefield. "For anyone who isn't born with it." The leader finally stepped forward. One by one, The hunters froze in place, parting like a curtain. The mirrored dome on its head shifted, melting until it became a perfect copy of Ethan's face. Kaela swore. It's not wearing armor. That's its skin. It's showing you what it really wants. Ethan's grip tightened. Which is? You, alive. Collector arrival. In 30 seconds, the ship warned. The leader raised its staff. Lightning lanced through the air, striking the ship. The cockpit flared white. The smell of burning metal filled Ethan's lungs. Shields at 28%. Kaela leaned in. You take the leader. I'll keep the rest busy. Ethan's eyes locked. On her. You won't survive, she smiled faintly. Ben, you'll owe me a debt. Before he could answer, she was gone. Out of the hatch, blades in both hands, charging straight into the wall of hunters. Ethan dove toward the leader. The ship's weapons flared, slamming into the mirrored figure. But every shot was absorbed, reflected back as harmless light. Then the Corps' voice cut into his thoughts. Direct link required to terminate target. Ethan understood instantly. He would have to leave the ship. He landed hard in the dust, the red light burning his skin. The leader stood perfectly still as he approached, staff in hand. The closer he got, the louder the hum in his chest became, until it drowned out everything else. The leader's voice slid into his head, smooth as glass. You are not theirs. You are ours. Return, and the hunt ends. Ethan stopped. 4. One terrifying heartbeat. He wanted to say yes. Then Kaela screamed his name. He snapped back, lunged forward, and drove the Corps' blade, a weapon he hadn't realized he was holding, straight into the mirrored dome. The reflection-shattered light exploded outward, ripping through the hunters in an instant. The harvesters froze, their legs folding, inward before they collapsed into heaps of scrap. Collector arrival in 5. 4. Ethan staggered back toward the ship, Kaela sprinting beside him, blood streaking her armor. They dove inside as the hatch sealed. The Corps' hum was now a roar. Jump sequence initiated, the ship's voice said. Destination? Unknown. The last thing Ethan saw before the jump tore the world apart was the collector breaking through the red clouds, a shape so massive it blotted out the stars. And just before everything went white, he swore he heard the leaders. Voice again. We will find you, brother. Asterisk the demand when Ethan's vision cleared. The red sky was gone. So was the colony. The ship floated in black space, surrounded by a river of glowing blue fragments, shards of light drifting like leaves on a current. Ethan didn't know if they were debris or something alive. The core pulsed gently in the center of the ship, its hum now slow and steady, like it was resting. Kaela sat in the co-pilot's chair, her face pale, her armor cracked and streaked. With dry blood, Ethan's voice was rough. Where are we? She didn't look at him. Nowhere safe. The ship's voice spoke in both their heads. Location, the grave path, final resting place of the First Fleet. Outside, the fragments began to shift. Some formed shapes. Massive, skeletal outlines of ships older than anything Ethan had ever seen. Others looked disturbingly like the hunters' mirrored heads, cracked and empty. Kaela's hands gripped the controls. They followed us here. Movement caught Ethan's eye. Beyond the glowing debris, a shadow detached itself from the darkness. Not a hunter, not a harvester, but something larger. It moved slow, deliberate, with an elegance that felt wrong for its size. The ship whispered, Alpha signature detected. Kin to pilot. Ethan froze. Kin? Kaela turned sharply. What does it mean by that? The voice didn't hesitate. The pilot shares genetic markers with the Alpha. Estimated relation. Direct sibling. Ethan's breath caught. That thing out there is my brother? Kaela's expression hardened. No, it's not your brother. Not anymore. The shadow came closer, and as it emerged into the light of the fragments, Ethan saw it, a face in the black glass, his own older, colder, eyes like deep space. The Alpha's voice slid into his thoughts. You carry what belongs to us. Return. The core and live. Kaela's blade was suddenly in her hand. If you give it to him, every world in your star's reach will burn. Ethan's pulse pounded. If I keep it, he'll kill us. Her gaze locked on his. Then we kill him first. And after, we settle our bond. The core's glow intensified, reacting to the Alpha's presence. The ship's panels lit with warnings in languages Ethan didn't know, each one flashing faster. Alpha weapon lock. 18 seconds to impact. Kaela stepped closer, her voice low but unshakable. Where I come from, saving a life makes it yours. You saved mine. You fixed my ship. That means I am bound to you. In war, in debt. And in bed, Ethan blinked at her. This is really the time for that? Asterisk, she didn't smile. If we live through this, there will be no later. The Alpha's attack came, a spear of black energy that tore through the debris field, scattering the glowing fragments like dying fireflies. Ethan's hands moved on the controls before he thought. The ship rolled hard, just dodging the blast. The core's hum sensed with his heart again, faster this time, urging him toward the Alpha.Kaela took the weapons console. We take his ship's heart like he wanted to take yours. One shot, or we're both dust. They dove straight at the Alpha. It didn't flinch, just watched them with Ethan's own face. As if testing him at the last second, Ethan pushed the ship into a spiral, Kaela's cannons locking onto a weak point the core had highlighted in his mind. Fire, he said. The blast hit. The Alpha's mirrored dome shattered, not into dust, but into more shards of light, drifting away. Into the grave path, the shadow twisted, shrieked without sound, and then was gone. Silence filled the cockpit. Only the core's calm hum remained. Kaela exhaled, sinking back into her chair. It's done. Ethan stared at the debris field. No, he'll come back. Things like that always do. She stood, walking toward him with the steady step of someone who had already decided something. Then you'll need me, and I'll need you. She stopped inches away, her eyes locking on his. By my people's law, the bond is sealed. You are mine now, Ethan. Before he could reply, the ship's voice interrupted. Warning. Multiple Alpha signatures inbound. Kaela's smile was thin, dangerous. Husband. It seems our honeymoon. We'll have to wait. Ethan swallowed hard, looking out into the shifting dark. Yeah, but let's make sure we live long enough to argue about it. The ship's core pulsed brighter, ready for another fight, and somewhere out in the grave path, the hunters began to move again.